Welcome to New Jersey Capital Report. I'm Steve Abudato.
And I'm Rafael Piraman. Later in the program, we'll speak with radio personality Curtis Lewa. But joining us right now is Lieutenant Governor of New Jersey, Kim Guadagno. Lieutenant Governor, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a privilege.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Lieutenant Governor, Ben Franklin, after the Constitution was passed, said that the proper way to address the Vice President was to call him your most superfluous majesty. because he didn't have any responsibility, any duties written out.
She said she'd take that, Ralph.
Well, let me ask my question. To those who may think that the role of Lieutenant Governor is similar to that of Vice President, what would you say were your responsibilities and your duties?
Well, constitutionally, there are no responsibilities. The role is to be prepared when the governor is out of state for any length of time, and that's what I do on a daily basis. So that's one job. The other job I have is Secretary of State. That's actually how I get paid, as the Secretary of State. And then the Lieutenant Governor for Governor Christie has the role of economic growth in New Jersey. So I like to say I have 3 jobs, 1 salary, no pension.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, let's go back and let's get this out of the way and deal with it. We're doing this program, is it the 19th, guys, that we're taping? And another snowstorm is coming tomorrow. We should, anytime we tape, we should say another snowstorm is coming.
I think I didn't come today.
Exactly, but by the time the show airs, it may be a few. Clarify for us, just from your perspective, when the big snowstorm came, you had a vacation that was planned, okay, with your family.
Right. I got on a boat on December 17th and got back January 3rd.
Okay. Criticism on the part of some toward the administration saying if the governor was going to be away with his family, which was a commitment he made to his family, and you were going to be away, scheduling problem. Governor acknowledged we need to do better in that way. What did you take away from that experience?
Well, the real takeaway is how did we do? How was the snow cleared up? What kind of a job did we do? If we did our job, no matter where we were, then I think people will get over it. But I think they expect their lieutenant governor to be in state. And going forward, as the governor has already said, I will be in state when he's out of state. Now, you have to understand, in our office, as we get our calendar straight, I mean, there's never been an office of lieutenant governor before, so everybody is setting up the office of lieutenant governor. We now
You're making it up as you go along.
Well, yeah, and one way you can do no wrong because nobody's ever done it before.
But how do you ensure it doesn't happen again?
We have one scheduler, we have one calendar, we exchange calendars. We now will prepare a little further in advance as to who's going where and when, and simply won't happen again because that's what the governor has decided will happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do substantive policy. You have an economic responsibilities. Are you the economic czar?
No, I'm not the economic czar. I'm the lieutenant governor in charge of economic growth.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
I mean, the governor the prior administration had an economic czar. This is very different. And the reason why it's very different, the reason why it's working as opposed to other administrations, and I'm not singling out any, but there have been some comments about why it hasn't worked in the past. Right. And it hasn't worked in the past because there hasn't been a lieutenant governor who's been able to reach out on behalf of the governor and make various parts of the state government work together.
Somebody who has the clout
that
you do.
Well, I walk down the hall and take a left and a right, and I'm in the governor's office sitting at his conference table, which is what Chris Christie has decided he wants his lieutenant governor to be able to do.
But let's be clear here. In terms of your relationship with the business community, what is it that you believe, forget about believe, you've been there for over a year, what do they want?
Well, it's very easy. When we came into office, there were no economic development calls being made out of Trenton. You couldn't pick up the phone and call any business person who had ever heard from the governor's office. I have talked to businesses who said, we called the governor's office to tell them we were moving to Pennsylvania, and they said, good riddance, no phone calls. Really? That doesn't happen anymore. If I get a phone call from a company who says they're leaving, I say, stop, wait, let me come and see you. Let me tell you why you should stay in New Jersey. Let me make the last best offer before you decide to go.
So, Lieutenant Governor, you've done more than that. I mean, that's good, and it's an ad hoc basis. You're helping businesses. But you were in charge of the red tape committee to eliminate red tape and regulation that was hampering business creation or bringing business in. You came out with that report in April. The legislature passed a series of bills based on your findings. What were the key elements that's in that legislation, and how will it help businesses?
Well, I can tell you right now, what we did in the very first week was sign an executive order, where the governor signed an executive order that says that from now on, state agencies will respond in the regulatory area in a common sense manner. So what does that mean to a business? Well, if let's think of a wild example, the DEP division of water isn't talking to the DEP division of land or whatever that was.
That's just hypothetical.
Just hypothetically speaking. Or even worse, they both make decisions that are completely opposite each other. Well, the business people pick up the phone and call me, because we're going to use our common sense. Call me directly. As you know, I think you've heard, I hand out my cell phone number, and I'm not going to do it today on the phone.
I was going to ask you to do it right on the air, but go ahead.
And the reason why we do this is I'm in charge of red tape. My job is to cut through red tape.
What do you do in that situation? Seriously.
People call me on the telephone and say, first they immediately say, I can't believe you're answering your own phone. To which I respond, it's your cell phone. You pay for it. You should have a government official answer the phone. And then they tell me what their problems were. On the way to your show today, I got a phone call from a air conditioning contractor who said that they had just had to let their fire person go. So they had lost their license. They had 3 jobs being tied up because they lost their license because the licensee was this employee they had to let go. And what could I do about it? So what I could do about it is call the fire bureau and say, isn't there some interim measure we can follow so these jobs continue to move forward? We use our common sense, getting back to red tape, in how we handle these situations. And by the end of the day, I will call that contractor back and
But
give them a
Lieutenant Governor,
response.
what I'm looking for is, what have you put in place when you're no longer Lieutenant Governor, that will make it systematically easier? What has been eliminated and what has been put in place besides your own personal intervention?
Right. Automatically, right now, as we sit here today, we've already proposed 800 pages less, nearly 1/3 less number of regulations going forward than we did in the past. So 3 years down the road, maybe 7 years down the road, we will have less regulations on the books. Now, that doesn't mean we care less about our business or environment or our consumer safety or our public. That just means that we're paying more attention to how those rules and regulations impact on our quality of life. You know, environmental regulation does not have to get in the way or have to be an obstruction to environmental progress. So you can do both at the same time, and that's what we're working on. 7 years from now, 3 years or 7 years from now, I'd like my legacy to be cut red tape, institute a proactive one-stop shop for businesses to get their questions answered, which we've set up in the Lieutenant Governor's office, and also make businesses understand that New Jersey is not only competitive, but a place where they're welcome. People go where they're welcome. Businesses are staying in New Jersey because they're now feeling welcome.
Lieutenant Governor Guadagno, let me ask you this. When the governor's holding a press conference, and it either inevitably winds up on YouTube,
inevitably, but more often than not.
I didn't mean that as a bad thing. I mean, they're interesting. They're interesting press conferences. Things are said. Exchanges take place. I have to tell you, there are times that while I'm watching and listening to the governor and analyzing, getting ready for show, I'm also watching you. You smile a lot. I notice when you're off, you laugh. There are times you laugh, and I don't. Again, do you find like some of these back and forth, sometimes intense, but it's funny?
It is funny. It's not funny from that. It's nice to see a public official elected by the people of the state of New Jersey who means what he says and says what he means. That's what's so funny about it.
Rare?
It's, well, yeah, it is rare.
Do you want to jump in at times?
I mean, no. No.
What do you mean, no?
And the fact that
get between an exchange between the governor of the state of New Jersey and a member of the Fourth Estate, no thank you.
Let me ask you something. Talk about that relationship, because we go to our colleagues down the State House a lot, not just legislators, but more importantly, in this case, the media. We have an operation down there where we talk to them. Do you like interacting with the press corps? And A, and B, do you find our questions to be insightful?
Well, of course your questions are insightful. And when they're not, the governor lets you know.
Right.
I have gone up to the Fourth Estate. You know, in the State House, it's not like this. You have to drive an hour to get here. In the State House, the Lieutenant Governor's or the Secretary of State's office is on the first floor with the governors. Then you walk up the steps, and there's the press corps. They're right there. So just a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I took a lap through the press corps just to say hello and introduce myself again and wish them a happy new year and kind of let them know that there's a face behind the name. And
all off the record?
I don't know. I didn't ask it to be off the record.
Well, then it is.
I didn't ask.
Then
I just
wasn't.
showed up. Right. You didn't read about it the next day, so it could have been that bad. read about it the next day, so it could have been that
Can I
bad.
ask you something?
Yes.
Since you said that he says what he means and he means what he says, and we've known him for a long time, and we know that that's true. But the fact of the matter is that there were a couple of promises that the governor made while he was campaigning that he did not fulfill. For example, he said that the property tax rebate would remain. It did not. And he blasted Governor Corzine for borrowing for the Transportation Trust Fund, and he just borrowed for the Transportation Trust Fund.
Now, come on the
Give him what you
Transportation
got.
Trust
Now,
Fund.
take
Come
one
on,
at a
it was a
time.
pay as you go. Okay, we'll take
But
the
to take
first
one
one
at a time,
first.
the governor said that property tax rebates not cut.
Right. The property tax, look, you get in here, you're not only $2 billion short in the first week you're there, may not even make payroll by March. You have to take some drastic measures.
But the person who ran against him in the primary predicted that.
Well,
Steve Lonning said, this is not going to work because we're not going to have the money. So obviously some people knew ahead of time.
What, about the $2 billion? No,
he knew
I
that.
can honestly say that if they knew about it, they weren't talking about it. It was $2 billion for the year in. It wasn't even including the $13 billion the next year. So let me get to the rebate.
Yeah.
The rebate is going to be folded in as soon as we're able to give it instead of a political measure that comes out, funny how this is, right before November with the name of whoever happens to be running for governor on it. It's going to come out as a credit to your tax return, which is where it should be, and it's more cost effective. You know how we were making those payments?
Go ahead.
We were borrowing $10 million to make those rebate payments. So that's robbing Peter to pay Paul.
You promise you come back another time and have
I
another
promise.
in-depth conversation
Good.
with Lieutenant Governor
Thank
Kim
you.
Guadagno. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay right there.
Thank you very
It's been an
much.
honor.